guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about additional skills that all medical billers and coders must have. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, so whether you are a medical biller or whether you are a medical coder, of course, obviously, all of the staple skills of the coding and the anatomy and medical terminology, they all need to be there. I'm not talking about all that today. Today, I am talking about the other stuff, the computer stuff, the math stuff. Oh my God, the math, Blue, the math. All right, let's start out with that one first, math. I get this question from time to time. I always hope that this will go away, but this is one of those questions that just is a recurrent nightmare of mine. Math. Blue, I heard that there's math. If it's so difficult, I don't know if I can do it. Some people are already knocking themselves out of medical coding even before they get in because they think that they know, okay? And they hear something, somebody said something. Oh, it has a lot of math. Somebody said, oh my God, it has so much math. And they're thinking software coding. We are not software coding. We are medical coding. We work with medical records, and that's what we do. We translate documentation into codes for insurance and for statistical purposes. So our level of math when it comes to medical coding is very small. Simple plus minus multiplication division math. Very easy stuff that can be done on a calculator. Now, when you are a medical biller, if you are doing medical billing, now you will have to work with percentages. Again, simple formula math, plus minus multiplication division math, and then of course working with the percentages, but you're working with a calculator. And again, all of this is plugged into a formula so that everything stays consistent. So it's nothing to panic about, really. When in the grand scheme of things, math is a very small portion of medical coding, very small. And if you allow math to knock you out, it's always going to knock you out of everything that you try to get into, because there is a component of math in nearly every single profession, right? And every single profession that pays really well is going to incorporate some form of math. So just be thankful that medical coding is more about reading comprehension and reading and understanding, which segues me into the next one. Reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is critical for what we do. If English is not your first language, and I'm going to say this, somebody's going to get offended, but this is not meant to offend anybody, guys. It's the truth. If English is not your first language, that's something that you have to work on. There is no excuse for not working on your English language so that you can understand and really get what the provider is trying to say. Because reading comprehension is very fundamental to what we do. Now, if you say, well, Blue, I have a learning disability. People who have learning disabilities work in medical coding all the time. There's plenty of adaptive devices and things like that to kind of help and, help you to understand or help you to read the documentation. Some have that, and so that's okay. But it's really on you to be able to read and understand everything that you are reading in here. And the fact that English is not your first language is not an excuse. The fact that you don't have really good comprehension in reading is, again, not an excuse. Not when there's so many resources out there to help you to become a better reader, to become better at comprehending like long passages and things like that. There's a ton of videos on YouTube about that. So you can do your research and look into that, all right? And also, which leads to language. Your English language has to be superb. Why? Because these doctors who have years and years and years of school and education, they're going to expect to, when they're speaking to you, to understand what you're trying to say. If you're somebody who says, well, Blue, I don't write very well. I don't, when I'm writing messages, it just never comes out the way that I want it to. That's something that you have to practice with. And there's plenty of programs out there like Grammarly that can help you to make your letters make more sense and things like that. And you can also watch a lot of TED Talks to help you to learn about like speech and how to be assertive in a professional way. There's a lot of those things. And the fact that you feel that you're not confident in it is not an excuse, because we all have to communicate with our providers. Some providers will be more eccentric than others, and there will be some that are very nice, and there will be some that are very arrogant, and there will be some that will not want anything to do with you, because how dare you? You have just a certification and a high school diploma or a GED, and you deign to tell me anything? Oh yeah, you will see a whole different spectrum of people. So you have to be prepared, and being confident with your speech and how you write is really key to this. And that's the one thing that people will underestimate you in the beginning. I get underestimated all the time. There's a lot of people that underestimate me, but then when I start doing my thing, they're like, whoa, you know, she knows a lot. Of course, you can't just be what people's expectation of you is, right? You can't. You have to be yourself. And to me, I love to learn. I like to teach people. I like to read. And all of those things, you pick up a few things, right? So that's the thing that I want people to understand, is that it's not an excuse if you don't know these things, or if no one ever taught you, or no one ever said in the school and things like that. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you now. These are the skills that medical coders need in order to be successful. You have to be good at speech. You have to be good at being a professional and being out there and being able to speak to these people who are going to intimidate you. I have been intimidated quite a few times, but I learned to work with it. I learned how to carry myself as far as like, all right, this provider makes me nervous. I've got to get in there and I've got to talk to them about this. And once that takes hold, it's a lot easier. But it takes some development, and it takes some self-discipline. And that once you get it, oh, trust me, you got it. But it's never going to work if you don't start working on it. So that's one thing you do have to start working on, is that professional communication, because it's very important, especially when you're emailing them anything. You know, sometimes coders will say, well, I'm going to teach them a lesson. They don't need to learn lessons from you. You need to be partners with your provider. And so that way they know that they can trust you. You have to be able to build trust. Building trust is another skill you have to have. You need people to trust you, because again, you're going to run into all kinds of personalities. And it's not just with the providers, it's also going to be with your colleagues and with your supervisor, your auditors, you know, your lead medical coders, all of whom have varying levels of experience and education. So again, you have to be able to talk to them in a way that is going to be professional and be able to get your point across. You want to be assertive, but not be, you know, not be walked all over, okay? You don't want to be too aggressive either, right? You want to be that good middle balance of professionalism, because that's going to go a long way to helping you. And if you're being audited and the auditor is wrong, you have to come up with a respectful way of letting them know, because sometimes it's gonna give you a challenge when you're working with an auditor, especially an auditor who thinks that they know everything, because sometimes, unfortunately, not all auditors are good auditors. And there's going to be some that will claim that they know everything, and that's just not the way to be. Nobody knows everything. Nobody. We are all learning, every single one of us. But learning to have that professional communication, you're going to be able to get your point across and be able to defend your work when it needs to be defended. All right. So that's just another thing that you got to know. Another really good important skill to know is just the basics of Microsoft Office, like Outlook, Word, and Excel. At least those three. Now, if you know PowerPoint, that's even better. But if you don't know PowerPoint, it's okay. Some places, they don't even care. But it does help to know how to put slides together. And the great thing about YouTube is that they have tons of educational videos, very easy how-to, quick videos on how to master those three at least, Outlook, Word, and Excel. and then of course with PowerPoint, so the 4. And so if you have any questions, you can look on YouTube and be able to find those little quick tutorial videos. I know a lot of people like quick. Well, I'm not fast. I don't pretend that my videos are quick either, because trust me, if you look at any of my videos, it's average of 20 minutes. And that's what I do, because I like to explain things, because if you try to rush people to understand things, people's attention span gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's not a good place for anybody to be, because then all of a sudden your brain can't retain a lot of information. And to me, I'm not going to fall into that, which is why I don't do TikTok and I don't do Reels and I don't do any of the little quick things, because that's not me. Never been me and never gonna be me. I'm just saying. But yes, check out YouTube. They got plenty of tutorial videos about those, and that really does help when it comes to being a good medical coder, because those skills you do need. You do need to know how to use Outlook, Word, and Excel, right? Those are helpful because those are generally used at a lot of places anyway. And when it comes to, well, Blue, I don't have any experience in like using the encoder. I don't have any experience using the electronic medical record. A lot of places are going to be willing to train you on the electronic medical record and on the encoder. So you really don't have to worry about those. I have done a demonstration video on how to use the encoder. If I remember, I will leave the video link in the description box below. But it's just very simple. And the thing about an encoder is this. If you know how to look stuff up in the book, it's going to make it easier for you to navigate in the encoder. The encoder is not infallible though. There are some things with the encoder where it will lead you to the wrong code if you choose the wrong path. So again, if you are proficient in looking up the code in the book, it's going to make working in the encoder a lot easier, because then you're going to be able to spot, well, this doesn't look like the right code, or I don't think I'm in the right range. And you're going to know this because if you've been proficient in the book and then you work with the encoder, then you're good to go. Sometimes people try to skip this step and just try to dive right into the encoder. I got a request from somebody that says they wanted me to do a private demonstration with them for an ortho thing. And I told them, okay, I don't have access to this because the encoder is at my work. When I'm at home, which is where I do all my filming and things like that. I said, but I can go over the book with you, because that's a very big part of knowing how to navigate in the encoder, because people can get lost in the encoder simply by not knowing which way to go. Okay. So again, if you don't have that skill, it's okay. Like I said, a lot of employers will be willing to train in that, because they know that a lot of these facilities have different electronic medical records. And the reason that it's so different for every place is that different facilities have different needs. And so some facilities are using, electronic medical record that has like a higher capacity. Others, they don't need that much. So they can use a smaller product and maybe have a little bit more amenities in their product, because they don't need as much bandwidth or whatever. So it really all depends on that facility. Some other skills that would be very helpful is, of course, time management. If you are in the workplace and you are not managing your time well, especially in a field like medical coding where we are held to production standards, you want to get a handle on that. Some people will say with a straight face, I can't keep up with production, but you see them, they're on their cell phone with TikTok or whatever, Instagram, and they're messing around on their phone. The work time is for work. You get your break times, however many breaks you get with your work. For me at my facility, we get 2 15-minute breaks, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And so if I need to be on the phone, that's when I'm on the phone. But for the most part, those work hours are devoted to work. And if you say, well, Blue, I have kids and they need to call me, they don't need to call you 24/7. Okay, they've got school too themselves. And so we have to be able to try to train ourselves to devote those work hours to work. Because like I said, you'll see people complain, oh, I can't keep up with production. But again, they're right there on their phone. why don't you put your phone away and you'll be able to keep up with production? Because these records take time and they take focus and concentration. And that's something that we as a society are getting really bad at, which is attention span. A lot of people want things quick, quick, quick. And again, I don't do things quick. And I'm not sitting here trying to speed through when it comes to how, my advice and things like that. So that's something that, I hope you all work on that and try to focus on, when work is work. So that way, when you're done at the end of the day, you are done. You're not feeling like, oh, I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't make my quota because I was on my cell phone and I feel guilty. If you didn't make your quota and you were working, you weren't on your cell phone, you'll feel not as guilty, because trust me, it happens sometimes when it comes to, production standards. Sometimes you can't always meet your production standards in the same day, because sometimes these charts, get more difficult. So it really all depends, but again, it's not an excuse if you're sitting there with your cell phone in your hand. So we got to watch those things. It's about taking personal responsibility for that. All right. But yeah, those are some of the skills that I do recommend, some additional skills that you have to have. Attention to detail is really big as well. Attention to detail is so critical in medical coding. It's not even funny, because if you transpose a number or a letter, or you switch out a letter or a number or whatever with another letter that's not appropriate, you can completely change the code or make the code invalid. This is why I always, I used to not say anything when people would misspell my name. I'd be like, whatever, just blow it off. But I'm saying more about it now, like my name is BLEU, because I want you guys to start getting into that habit of being more detail oriented. I hear people say, I'm detail oriented, but then you see them, they misspell words, they misspell names, and you can't be misspelling people's names, guys. Because even for me, as just a content creator here on YouTube, and we have no relationship, right? Like in real life, right? We have no relationship. But if you do that with a provider, oh, it's on. They don't have to listen to you then, because then you just disrespected them, because that's how they see that. And that's why I say you got to double check when you're spelling somebody's name. You double check that you spelled it right, because that's the important thing. When you don't, it shows carelessness. And if you're sitting there misspelling words, with the technology that we have today, there is no reason for misspelled words. I hate it personally. I personally hate it when I see somebody write a question and they'll say a bunch of abbreviations, and at the end they'll say PLZ instead of please. I don't answer those questions because to me that again shows laziness. There's nothing efficient about doing something like that, right? And you want to make sure that you're always clear whenever you're writing something. Again, it goes back to having good writing skills, right? You don't want to show that you're lazy in doing things like that. You want to show that you're always attention to detail. My name is spelled correctly, BLEU, and it's not spelled with the lowercase b either. That's another thing that's really irritating when I see people, they don't respectfully write people's names out, or use a capital letter when they're supposed to. That makes me nuts, because it's not anything that's cute or funny. You know what I mean? It's important to have really good grammar. I'm not the grammar police, but I'm just saying, it's important because you're going to be a professional out there, and you don't want to start developing bad habits. And if you have these bad habits, you want to start getting back on track and saying, okay, everybody's looking at me, because how you write is how they're going to perceive you. Okay? And if you're working remotely, or you're not working in the clinic with your providers, and you start writing all kinds of weird, crazy ways, oh yeah, it's going to be harder for you to develop those relationships. And it is about developing relationships. I'm just saying. So I'm going to wrap this one up, but these are the additional skills that you need to make you a successful medical coder. And it is all about self-improvement, guys, and you can do it. Again, YouTube is a wonderful source for all of these things about clear speech and professionalism and things like that. So Just my advice anyway. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.